Okay, so this is a build for constructors when you want to use the base over your trap tunnels. So this is going to be best used for your storm shields and for any missions where you are going to use a lot of traps. Maybe a 4 times mission where there's going to be a lot of enemies and you're using trap tunnels, that's where it's going to be best used. So the main hero that I think is the best, mainly for storm shields if anything, is Mega Base Kyle, because his ability, or his perk, is that it increases the base connectivity range by 3, whereas if he's in support it's only 1. So he's going to be the main person because it makes your base cover as many trap tunnels as possible, and this is important because your team perk is going to be supercharged traps. So for each constructor, this isn't just once, this is for each constructor you have in your support, it increases the damage of traps in the base by 8.5%. So with this setup you have 5 constructors in your hero loadout, which means that your traps are going to be doing 42.5% extra damage in the base. So the bigger your base is, the more traps are going to get that extra damage. The one thing I will say is that you can probably swap out any hero to be the main hero if you really want. Like maybe you'd want to put Machinist Harper as the main one to get trap durability up if you're doing like Twine, Storm Shield 8, 9 or 10 or something like that. But I think this is the best one overall. So the first support is going to be Thunder Thora, because she gives the perk of enemies standing on the structures in the base take damage every 5 seconds. This is a really powerful support because if your trap tunnels have a floor that's covered by the base the entire way through, the enemy is going to be continuously taking damage. So it's effectively like having extra wooden floor spikes, except it doesn't slow them down, but there is another hero that gives that perk, so that's why she's in there. And then next is Power Base Kyle. You can also use Power Base Nox. There's a few others that give this perk, but the perk is that each structure in the base is healed for 4% of its max health every 10 seconds. So if you're getting hit by lobbers, if some small husks are hitting a wall for some random reason, this is going to heal it. And maybe there's an alert mission where the normal husks explode and deal damage to structures, then this will heal it for you. You don't have to walk up to each wall individually, this will do it for you. I definitely don't recommend putting this as the main one because it only increases the healing to 11%, so it's not really worth putting him as the main person. And then next is Machinist Harper, obviously. She gives trap durability an increase of 17.5%. If she's the main character, it goes up to 52.5%, so you might want to do that if you're doing the later Twine Storm Shields. Other than that, she's definitely just best in support, but obviously it's going to give your traps more durability, which is useful more for Storm Shields. I don't think any mission you would actually need this, so if you're just using this in a normal mission, you could probably swap her out for someone else if you really wanted to. And next is Base Kyle. So his perk is that everything in the base has an increased health of 28%. If he's the main person, it increases it by 84%, but I don't really think that's too important because we also have that support where it heals everything in the base every 10 seconds, so I think he's definitely a key one to have, but only in support. And then lastly, on this build, I have the Ice King, whose perk is enemies on the structures affected by base are snared by 15%. So this is going to add to that effect I said before, where they're getting electrocuted every 5 seconds. This is going to snare them as well, so it's going to be effectively like you have wooden floor spikes everywhere. And this even works on top of the wooden floor spikes if you have them in your trap tunnels. So this is definitely a good one to have. I will also show you that there is another constructor that you could put in here that would work well. So I'll show that. That's Electro Pulse Penny. Her support is that enemies that melee attack the structures get damage hit back to them. So any husks that walk up to the wall and hit it, they'll take damage back for doing that. The reason I haven't put this in is because the main things that are going to hit your base are either going to be lobbers, and that's not melee damage, so it's not going to affect them, or smashers, and the smashers are not going to take enough damage to kill them before they break through the wall, so I didn't bother putting her in. But if you really wanted to put her in, you can do. You could probably swap her out for maybe the one that increases building health. You might want to swap her out for Base Kyle. That's completely up to you, obviously. But the main thing about this build is that you use all constructors and you have that team perk going. Other than that, you can probably pretty much have any combination of these ones here. Like, you could put any of them as the main commander and it'd still be a useful one. But I think Mega Base Kyle is the best one just because it gives that extra range of 2 if you put him as the commander. And that just means you're having more traps with more damage. So that's probably the best way to go about it. Gadgets wise, that's up to you. There's not really like useful ones for this. It's probably just up to personal preference. You might want a slow field in there instead of adrenaline rush. If you put a slow field in there, you can whack that in your trap tunnel where the most amount of your traps is. Maybe there's a few smashes that are getting through, you might want to put that down to stop them in their tracks. So that is the base build for constructors. Now we're on to the decoy build. So the main hero in this is going to be Controller Harper, who decreases the cooldown by 17%. She decreases the cooldown by 43% when she's the commander. So that's going to be a massive change to the weight that you have to have between each decoy. You can also put Sentinel Hype there instead. She increases the duration by 4.5 seconds if she's the commander, whereas if she's in support it increases it by 1.5 seconds. So if you want your decoy to last longer but you have to wait longer between uses, use Sentinel Hype, whereas if you want the decoy to take less time to come back to you but it doesn't last as long, then go for Controller Harper. I think Controller Harper is better because you have less downtime between each decoy. Yes, there might be shorter decoys, but you can put them down faster after they've gone, which I think is more important because it gets the husks back to where you are putting this down. So the most important support for this, I think, is that the decoy deals damage every 1 second to nearby enemies, and this is Conqueror Magnus. So this is the pulsating damage that you used to have before. It's one of the more important ones if you're having a decoy build, and I definitely think you should get that in there. Then obviously, whichever one out of the 2 of Controller Harper and Sentinel Hype, you want to have the other one in support, so that in this case it still increases the duration of the decoy. Next, I put Thunder Thor in here because she gives the electrified floors, and I think that's useful because even though you're using a decoy, you can still put floors down, put a base on it, and then put your decoy on that, and then when they're at the decoy, they're going to be taking damage from this and the pulses that come from the decoy, which is just going to add to the damage they take. I kept Power Base Kylian from the last build because it repairs everything that's inside of it. This is just a personal preference of mine. Another good constructor you can put in here is one that makes the decoy explode. I think it's one of the hazard ones, but I don't actually have him, but he's definitely the one that you want to get in there if you don't want him in. And then I've got the Ice King for snaring the enemies on the base. Again, this will slow them down after the decoy's gone. If you've got a floor that's covered by base, it's going to slow them down from coming towards you after the decoy's gone, so that you can put another decoy down and bring them back to the decoy. So I think that's a really good one to have for there. And then for the team perk, I've kept in supercharged traps so that each constructor is going to give you 8.5% extra damage, and I think that's a really useful thing because you can put gas traps above where you're going to put the decoy, and you can have retractable floor spikes below, so you throw down the decoy, all the enemies are going to go on it, the traps are going to do more damage, they're going to be electrified, they're going to be slowed, and it's all going to be one massive damage to the husks. So yeah, they are the 2 constructor builds that I've done. You can also in this build put someone that increases the damage or decreases the cooldown of the plasma pulse there. That's completely up to you. You might want to do that, or you might want to focus on the base like I did. Either way works fine. It's just these 2 here that are mainly the ones that you need for this. So yeah, I hope you found this video on the constructors useful, and I will see you in the next one.